Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to change the world one starfish or one person at a time. I'm really excited for our guest. My gosh, this is someone that I should have met a while ago, but we didn't meet. Jill is actually a fellow Canadian in Arete and a fellow MS warrior, which is intense. We're just learning this just before we started recording here. So I'm just so excited. Guys, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share, all the things. That's how we get the word out. So thank you so much for being on today, Jill.
Oh, thank you for having me. I am just absolutely blown away just from our initial conversation before. I wish it was recorded, but I feel like for my long lost sister, I'm like, whoa, okay. The stars have aligned.
We're like twinning. I'm so excited to meet you in person, whatever that is. And I'm sure it'll be sooner than later, actually. So very, very exciting. So Jill does business consulting. She runs White Label, which I'll probably explain a little bit more because I don't understand that totally. In the fitness industry, she's been in business for 22 years. She threw out that she knows Alec Hermosi, which I, got to touch on that. And so tell us a little bit about what got you into business. What are some of the things you overcame? Where are you at now? Wherever you want to go with all that.
It's funny because you probably look at me like, how old is she? And she's been in business that long. My parents are both teachers and they raised two kids that run their own business. So we ran far from what my parents did and the typical, let's stay safe. You've got a job that will pay you a pension. I like risks, been an athlete my entire life. And I just don't like all the push paper rules. And realized that the typical job for me, 9 to 5, just didn't work. And right from the get-go, moving to England, we all kind of meet the knight in shining armor. That doesn't mean they're actually going to be at the end, but I started my health and fitness business out in England, personal training, doing the aqua aerobics, the step stuff, you name it. I was like one of the highest getting certifications, thinking that was the be all and end all, but learned a lot. And then through that, kind of just made those stepping stones that a lot of us do in business, where not that we get bored, but we want to level up more. So then that kind of became getting into online coaching in 2011 before it was a thing. So one of my top coaches that we were in a gym said, "You're nuts. You're not going to make it online." And I just smiled and said, I think there's something here. So that was one of the OGs when it comes to how we can coach, developed through that in programs. Learned how to build 6-figure businesses, making workout plans online, definitely different nowadays with apps. And then kind of transitioned into nutrition coaching, and then realized, in the past 5 years that I can make a bigger difference when it comes to consulting and helping other health coaches do the right things, implement the things that will actually capitalize them moving forward. And as business coaches, we know that we can actually generate more revenue for ourselves. And that's kind of been my kind of journey, which I never expected to happen. 20 years ago, if you told me I'd go from personal trainer to business consultant, I'd laugh, but hey, never say never.
Wow, no kidding. So what were some of the obstacles that you were kind of new in an industry that wasn't there yet. So
yeah,
people that
it was a lot of obstacles, right? And especially when it came to social media, learning that was a big thing, understanding how to be a powerful female in the space when it was typically male dominated, and doing it in a way that felt right for me. I always learned from my mistakes, when I used to do fitness competitions wearing the bikinis and the clear heels on stage. So I made, a good mark doing that. And through it, it never felt completely right. And, you think, well, if I don't wear as many clothes, maybe I'll get more women to like my body and then I will generate more income. It did work, but only to a certain point. And I realized, there's got to be a different way. We've got to kind of set the standard when it comes to being professional and strong and not having to go that route, where this is typically what we see in the health and fitness space is girls in a bra walking around selling stuff. And right. I just knew that doesn't have to be the case. And I wanted to say, I've done that, but there is a different way. And that's been my entire mission going forward, is being powerful as a female. And through that space was mindset. And really learning that myself was, we know anything starts with the mind, the brain, in order for us to take action. So I went back to school, became a therapist, and realized through my $50,000 master's degree, I don't want to be a therapist because I don't want to do the pencil pushing. So that was an expensive one, but a great learning experience. to take that information and say, hey, how can I apply that in my business?
Mm-hmm.
And that was where I created the #1 weight loss program that we see white labeled, which we'll talk about, originally called the Neuro-Slim Solution. So that's using CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, all of those tools to be able to help us rewire our mind and getting a neutral stance when it comes to how we lose weight, how we have a neutral relationship with the scale. Because at the end of the day, we all know a diet plan doesn't work. Like, we've got to change what's up here. Mm-hmm. So that was my big thing, was creating this program. Did it for 6-7 years, amazing success. And then kind of with Alex, it was when he did Gym Launch and was in that space, you think, well, what else is there? Like, I kind of just want to do something else. Like, I can only talk about chicken, asparagus, and the scale for so long. And in my head, I'm thinking, if I have to do this another 25 years and hear people berate themselves about the scale, like, I'm going to lose it. So I had to decide, do I want to walk away or do I want to make a difference? And I thought, let's make a difference. And then that became the white labeling. So I took my entire program, and instead of keeping it for myself, I ended up working with coaches, working with top different weight loss programs in the States and in Canada, and implementing it as their own. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, and hopefully changing the game with mindset and weight loss. And white labeling is a big thing coming out. So a lot of people that have been in business don't know what to do next. If they have the skills, they've got it. There's a lot of people that are just coming into it and don't have that time on their hands to develop something for 6-7 years. That, you know, there's stuff available now that's already created. So
that's cool. So how did you meet Alex? Let's talk about that. I know, you know.
So that was back before, like, he was
that's so cool.
Somebody. Even though he's always been a somebody, it was when I was in the fitness competition space. Way back in the day. I think it was probably 2014, 2015. Like, I mean, donkeys years ago. And that was just a great learning experience of him saying, I want more. I know that I can do more and achieve better things. And that was really kind of the start. And it's just little here and there of tidbits, like, he's way beyond my scope. But I just remember him saying that. And I thought, okay, yeah, you're onto something. And look what he's done now. I am absolutely gobsmacked.
I was just listening to him today. That's why I was like, this is so funny. I was just listening to one of his podcasts.
Absolutely gobsmacked of what he's been able to achieve. And before he did anything, he had that vision. And that's always stuck with me, saying, now, if we believe in something wholeheartedly and you put the work in and you don't stop, it can happen. Like, he's just astronomical. So.
Wow. So now let's back up, because I know this one. So you got diagnosed with MS at 26, and then you had cancer afterwards. So, you know, how has that affected you mindset wise, body wise, health wise? And that's a big thing.
It was.
And, you know, how did you get through it, and how are you getting through it on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, great question. When I was diagnosed, obviously, actually kind of going back, my grandma had it. She was actually diagnosed the same time at her age, at 26, with MS. And then basically 2 years later, she was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And she's had a pacemaker, this, that, and everything. And she lived till she was 96.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh yeah, I got the stubborn genes of her. But when I was competing, I started to have difficulty seeing through my right eye. And I always thought it was my contacts. So my husband still remembers this day, I was opening up like 3 months of contacts. I'm like, there's something wrong with these. And he's looking like, baby, you should just go get your eyes checked. And I thought, okay, let's go see what's going on. And then that ends up being like a 6-7 month journey, which, you know. And I just thought I was tired. I was competing, pushing my body to the extreme. I just thought, like, that's normal. And realized, yeah, that wasn't normal. And when I was diagnosed, I was still young and couldn't comprehend what they were saying, because I was a fitness model, I was a cover model, I was a competitor. Like, I can't have this. I don't have time for it. So I literally just walked out of the office and went to the gym. So I realize now that was my coping mechanism, and I was avoiding what was initially there. And I kept trying, kept pushing, but realized, like, this is not the field that my body should be in. In all honesty, anybody knows it's an unhealthy field, and especially for someone with an autoimmune disease, you can't do that. So I finished Arnold, won my back-to-back championship, and thought, okay, like, my husband and I, we can move forward and really just understand my body and just have a great life. And then I was actually in San Diego. Don't even remember. I was so tired. Don't remember who I was. Left my luggage somewhere. Ended up missing my flight. Somebody found my phone to call Luke. It was nuts. But like 2 days later, I got home. I kid you not. Like, I had no recollection of what was going on. I was just so exhausted. And my husband said, let's go to the doctors. So they're doing a checkup saying you're going through an attack, but you've got, it's just some swollen lymph nodes. Let's just go get some other things checked out. And then they said I had thyroid cancer. I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll deal with that now too. And went through, got a thyroidectomy. And that actually was very easy. I'll be honest that, going through that, I thought, okay, we'll go through the surgery and everything will be great. Yeah, that's when like shit hit the fan basically, because when you don't have a thyroid, they have to then put Synthroid in. Let's kind of make sure everything's balanced. And my TSH ended up being, I think, 14. And just to give it a relative, I function at a 1.2 or something like that. So it was astronomical, off the charts. Wanted to kill myself, depressed, because that's just what happens. And I put on 70 pounds. So for me, that was the mark of, I'm an athlete. I've been in this field my entire life. I know what to do, yet I have no control over my own body. And for that, I just felt like a fraud, felt like a failure, like I'm a hypocrite. And luckily, I just still have that athlete mentality in me. And I thought, well, I've got to give myself time. Logically, I know, but it just sucks. But I can either just wallow in my shit, or I can try to become my best friend, because even though I went through a lot of things and everyone saw the highlight reel, I still hated who I was inside. And I'll be completely honest on that. So I thought, well, let's just go and figure out this bad roommate in my head and become my best friend. And that was that whole journey of self-development, mindset work. Loved every part of it, CBT, rewired, and actually love being by myself and love who I am inside. It's an amazing feeling. And then I just said, I'm like, I want other people to experience that. So that's kind of been that whole transition. And how I deal with my body now is I listen to it. And I have very strict boundaries when it comes to my sleep. So most people laugh. Like, I go to bed at 8 o'clock.
I love early bed.
I get up at 4, but I go to bed at 8, and I just need that rest. And I also don't go out at night because I want the sleep. I used to sacrifice that for other people. And now I realize that I want to be at my best. So sleep is important. I work from home. So if I had to travel for work in an environment, come home, I would be exhausted. So when I travel, it still kicks the shit out of me. But I just know sitting at home, doing what I'm doing, feeling like I'm transforming the world just from my office, I feel like a badass. It's only when I go out into the real world with people, I realize that I do have a disability, that my body doesn't work the same way it does. I'll trip over things. Everyone laughs and say, oh, you're clumsy. Like, you always get hurt. And I'm like, no, I just have MS, that my body knows how to go to the bathroom here, but it doesn't know a new environment, and it'll do weird things. So I just try and control my environment and make myself feel that I'm a super badass person. And I surround myself with people that don't treat me as, a victim, or that I have a disability. We laugh about it sometimes because it's just, how you kind of go through things. But I don't allow anybody to make me feel like I can't do something.
That's so good. So on the days that because a lot of people ask me this, and I know how I deal with it. But like, there's a lot of days, for everybody in the world that are like, I don't feel like, and I'm like, when you deal with a health thing, like, the feeling's kind of funny in my mind sometimes. But anyway, how do you deal with the concept of like the days you don't feel like it? Like you said, when you travel, it is hard on you. So, how do you, and I know you travel a lot. We were just talking about a few flights coming up right away. So how do you get through those moments when you're just like, oh my gosh, like I'm done. And how do you continue?
Yeah. Very good question. That's that resiliency mindset. Sometimes I've got, someone I really trust that if I'm going downhill quick, they know, okay, we're going to get you to bed. So I've had some people have to literally pick me up and put me to bed. But I'll be fully aware and make sure that people in my room are saying, I'll go to my limit and my max limit, because that's what I want to do. But I just make sure I do have the support, or for people to see telltale signs where I'm starting to, drift a little bit, that they'll pull me out, because I'm just in the zone if I'm somewhere and just want to give it my all. And in all honesty, I think you and I are similar, even though we've just got to know each other, that there'll be one day where I won't be able to. And I hear this from other MS clients that I've worked with and friends and I've met throughout the years, and they're afraid that, what's the point in doing anything, because one day I won't. But I have to flip the switch. I'm like, well, I have the opportunity now, and one day I won't. So I'm going to give it my all. And I also have seen many family members go through Alzheimer's and dementia and still dealing with that now. And I think that's my biggest push is I want certain people in my family that are going through that to still see me now and understand who I am and comprehend the amazing things I'm doing and not wait all that time and then be a vegetable and not have no idea the success I've had. So that's my big push every day is I'm like, I want you to remember who I'm becoming because one day you won't. And I've said that's like in my gut, the biggest punch. And that's why I say to people, unfortunately, it's through pain that a lot of us will excel.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And you know, when you've had people in your life that tell you, and there's a thing, so I'm curious where you're at on it, where they tell you to slow down, or I'm sure you've had people like that, or take it easy. And there is where you can push too much, and then there is how do you handle that? And how would you suggest, like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of the people listening here are entrepreneurs or getting people, even if they're not dealing with quote health issues or whatever, they're dealing with stuff. You know, people are like, you know, you don't need to do so much and all that kind of stuff. How do you handle that? And how would you suggest someone handles it?
Like, so I always look at who's giving me that advice. Because when we're entrepreneurs, we go to levels that majority of people won't go to. And that's where I look at it, that if someone's telling me to slow down and they're, you know, for example, I love my parents, you know, they're typical like teachers and I love them for it, but slow down, like that's too much. And I just look at it, I'm like, okay, you don't understand the way that I'm thinking, and too much for you isn't too much for me. So on a typical standard, I look at that. And then it depends, right? So I will do an audit. I will look at myself, look at my journal and say, okay, how's my energy? How's my mood? What's going on? Do I feel like I'm pushing too much? And then what do I have to do? So it's not like I'll take a bubble bath. I might just say, you know what, I'm going to shut my phone off, take a few extra hours and get some rest. And that's, you know, fortunately, it's been the miracle right now for me. It might change and then things will have to adjust. But right now it's just shutting down when I need to, and also look at who is giving that advice and not just taking that as a grain of salt, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's so good. And so necessary. And, you know, no one knows what you're capable of. Only you know what you're capable of. I say the same thing to my mom, because my mom was like, how do you do it? Like, I'm like, Mom, you're 70. Like, I'm not. So like, don't compare. Hello.
Yeah. There's a huge my mom stays up till 11. I'm the one that goes to sleep. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't know how you do it. And then you just think, we're just unique individuals and we're different. Yeah. And again, we'll only know, and there's a very good chance that we'll push over and then we just learn from it. And that's why I say I'm going to push over and I'm going to get sick. Inevitably, it's going to happen. I know that, but then I can learn from it and say, okay, that didn't happen. Do I need a new strategy? Then I'll have to relook at it.
That's so good. So, you know, if you do a lot of consulting and stuff, so what are some tips for someone in the consulting world? I don't even know exactly what that would involve, but like if someone listens to this and they're trying to grow a business or they're trying to build a brand or, you know, all that kind of stuff, what are some tips at the beginning that you would give someone, tangible tips on how to like build a successful business?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I always say like strategy over tactics first, and really sitting down and looking at what that business will entail in time frame, right? So some people are going all in and they're quitting their corporate job, right? Or it's looking at your finances and your actual life circumstances and saying, how can I legitimately put this in place? And what would that look like? And that's a strategy, because some people have kids to look after. They have responsibilities, they have bills, and they can't just say, okay, see you later, I'm just going to start this up. So it's going to look different for everybody. And when someone says go all in on your business, going all in is going to be different. So I always say there's never this rule book that this is the only way, that we have to look at, you know, in your 2.0, I call that like, what is it that you really want for your life? And you look at that as part of your business for your health in different circumstances, for your wealth and for love, right? For friendship and friends and family, all these things before actually looking at what am I going to sell in products and services, like all these things that we actually talk about, we've got to look back and say, how is this going to be fitting into my overall life that I want? And that is one of the first things I do. So then we know our why and understand why we're doing this. So when shit gets hard, we're not just packing it in, right? So we've got to have that big, deep one. And that's for me is I want my family to remember who I am when they can, right? So that's my big thing.
Helping
so
people
that's first and
like
foremost.
why they're doing it.
Why? Yeah,
Yeah,
there has to be a deeper reason. And then for a lot of people too, for more tactical stuff that I like to teach about is foundations. So a lot of us are building businesses and social media is part of it. And a lot of us hate it. Trust me, I hate it personally, but as a business, it works. So we just take out the personal feelings of all the shit that's on there and say business, that's where people are. And we look at, okay, how are we going to build the foundations? And a lot of people don't understand the platforms and how people actually interact. So a really good takeaway for anybody listening that's in business is to go on LinkedIn, go on Instagram, go on Facebook, and just go and view it, scroll away, but just notice and be cognizant of how you're actually interacting on there. Because LinkedIn, it's business. Like you're not going on there for fun looking at cat shit, right? So you're really, how you're speaking and showing up as a business will be attracting to the people and how we're actually on that platform. Instagram, it's kind of more fun, right? I don't want to read things where it's way too educational or I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about, right? Where it's just to be fun, simple. So we have to understand the user experience and then understand how is my brand going to want to show up on there? Who do I want to be known for? Who am I talking to? And what is it that I'm going to be putting out? So those are really, really important ones. Yet all I hear most of the time is how many times should I post per day? What reels should I do? And I'm thinking that's just like the worst advice. So if we can look at those foundations, set those up, then when you want to hire an agency or hire anybody, you've got this like rule book in a sense of this is what my brand is. You're not going to be housed because agencies that I've worked with that I've seen, they look at somebody that has no idea and they're like, cash cow. Just because you don't have a cover banner on LinkedIn. Like you see things and they will capitalize. And yet there's such a simple thing to do at a very low cost, if not free, to then set yourself up for success. So that is my big, big thing is just go back to foundations and understand the platforms from yourself as a viewer. That'll give a lot of insight of how you can actually perform better and not look at the metrics of likes and shares and all that stuff and look at, well, what's our conversion rate? Like, I don't give a shit how many people like my stuff. I want to see my bank account and it increasing. I want to see my clients say, yeah, I booked a call and it's working rather than I went viral. Because being viral, I've seen other people that go viral. They don't make any money most of the time.
That's really interesting. I like that. And really knowing your brand and who you are and what you stand for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And what would you tell someone, I mean, the biggest thing I think of, I have a lot of entrepreneurs around me, and a big thing that I hear a lot of questions, is this for me? I don't know about this. So on the days that like, you're really like, why is it good to be an entrepreneur versus working? Like, what are your thoughts on, like, tell us why it's worth it?
Because you got freedom and choice to do whatever the hell you want. Like, in all honesty, you get to wear the pants, you get to decide, and there's no barrier to what you can make income wise. And actually, if you choose how you want to work, like I have full rights to do whatever I want when I want. Like, sure, that could go a very wrong way. But you actually look at it that, my husband, amazing. He works as a firefighter, like just amazing all he does. And he provides that stability, the support. He has pension benefits. Like we're in both best of both worlds, entrepreneur and having that stability. It's great because if I couldn't work, we can still rely on him. Right. And I look at that, I'm like, there are benefits, but I also look at that, I'm like, you're red taped. That, you can't just say, hey, let's try this today and expand because we've got this visionary idea. Like you're stuck with what they say and by rules. And also he can't just say, well, I want to make an extra $50,000. Like they'd be like, okay. And he can't. Right. So that's where I look at as an entrepreneur, you've got the best time in the world to make a change the world and the reality that we're living in, make a difference and make income that actually doesn't have a capacity ceiling because you can always continually grow.
So true. I was offered a job actually when I quit truck driving and got into financial services 7 years ago. One of the jobs I was offered was a firefighter in Calgary. And at the time I was very blue collar. So that sounded actually really fun. And, for me, I'm super grateful. I got a bunch of firefighters on our team, but I'm just glad I didn't take it because with the MS, I would have gone in full-time disability, which would have been 66% of my income for the rest of my life, which would have been $66,000, $70,000 a year for the rest of my life. And I don't know how I would have survived on that now.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, holy moly. And
It's the freedom. And I kind of even saw that just exactly what you said when I stopped competing. And like I played junior national volleyball. So I've always been like high into like that highest extreme what you can do. And my husband's best friend rowed for Team Canada. And I'm like, I'm gonna row. So he taught me, he's like, actually pretty good. Go to Brock University and you can do the testing for Team Canada to see if like you hit the marks. I didn't say I had MS, and I did it, and I was at the 98th percentile. They're like, okay, like you can row, let's see what you can do. And then obviously you have to do a medical. I have MS, and they said, unfortunately, you're a liability, that you can't be trusted on the team. And unfortunately, you can't be a part of this. And I sat back and thought, like, I was mad. And then I thought, okay, like my career in anything of professional sport is done, because that's true. I am, unless I'm going to go to the Olympics for, what's it? It's not the Disability Olympics. I'm thinking, what is it?
there's a disability something.
Yeah, that's my brain's going on that, but that'd be the only way to do. And I said, that's not me. So I thought, okay, my sporting career and competition is done. And now my business is my competition in sport. And now I look back too, and with a little bit more maturity, yeah, I couldn't be trusted. I would be a liability on that team, because if I was too tired, I wouldn't be able to perform. So I understand that now, right? And that's just a lot of us too.
I don't know. Anyway,
I'm like, I understand.
There's a lot of people that aren't diagnosed with anything that when they're tired, they don't fricking perform. And they've got no excuse except they don't.
Well, I might flip the boat. So.
Don't get me started, man.
But the sport, that's what I said. I'm like, my sport can be business, and that's what I have. I'm like, oh, it's fun, because now that's all on my accord. No one can tell me anything I can or can't do. They can't kick me off the team. I can only fire myself, which I've done many times, and then hire it the next day because I don't have anyone else. So.
Oh man, that's so man, that just fires me up. There's a girl, I'll have to introduce you. Actually, I'll send it to you. And I'm trying to think of her name. Her mom's name's Sandra, but she referred me to her daughter, who also has MS and has had multiple heart surgeries and has a pacemaker and is doing the Ironman.
Oh wow!
Just doing it out in Hawaii, and her goal is just she's just like, hey, anyone can do this stuff. So she's been doing
that. Is inspiring.
Ironman. Yeah, it's really cool. So I'll make sure, I'm trying to get her on my podcast, but she's a busy girl. And she's,
well, we're going to get her on. That's for sure. We're going to text her and say, get on.
I'll get her information to you, because I think you guys will click too. Like, she's just, I haven't met her yet, but she's inspiring. Because amazing. A disability, quote unquote, is only a disability if it's a disability in your mind. And there's a lot of people that are healthy that live in a continual state of disability because they choose to. And our mind controls absolutely everything, period. And so, we can, and this is something, I don't know where you believe on this, but something I know I've talked about before. We can get ourselves sick, and we can get ourselves better, all with the 100%. Power of the mind.
100%.
It's like, I just can't, that pisses me off. So I'm like, you don't tell me I can't do that because of that. Like,
oh, trust me, as soon as someone tells me I can, I'm going to go do it.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh.
Negative reinforcement, it works well.
Let me at those people. Who are those people? But anyway, I love it. So, in wrapping up, I always have 3 final questions, and then anything that we didn't touch on. And by the way, guys, I know you want to reach out to Jill and ask, questions. We'll have all her information in the show notes. So feel free to reach out to her Instagram or Facebook, whatever else she's got, will all be there. But first and final question is, if someone is looking for their purpose, what is one sentence you would say that could help them find it?
In all honesty, for that, turn everything else off. Turn the phone off. Turn your computer off. Turn everything off. And that clarity will start to happen. Because far too often, we look at what everything else that other people are doing because we're not sure what we want to do. And then we mimic and mirror somebody else thinking that's what we should be doing. But really, in all honesty, we don't. So that's where you turn everything off and start listening to what's on in here.
Sounds good. And number 2, what is a favorite quote? Maybe you have more than one, but what's a favorite quote that comes to mind right now, and why?
Ooh, I'm going to read you one.
Okay.
Because I like writing quotes.
Oh, I love it.
So what do you want? Do you want a funny one?
Whichever one means the most to you right now.
I'm going to read two.
Okay.
Because one of them for business, I wrote this actually, it was yesterday. Stop automating everything because technology exists and start humanizing yourself and your business. So that one's powerful to me in believing that we need to become humans. Mm-hmm. And everybody talks about faking it till you make it. Mm-hmm. And I believe that instead of faking it till you make it, face it.
Mm-hmm. Face it. I like it.
Face it.
Yeah, face it. So good. And third and final question, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
2.0 mode.
That's
I'll explain
awesome.
what that is. So 2.0 mode, when we hear mindset, even though I call myself a mindset business coach, I still hate that word. I'm still working through that. It's PTSD because of all the fluffy, shitty people using that and gurus. Don't get me started. Otherwise, we're really going to go on a rant here. So it's fluffy unicorn sprinkle garbage that there's no real tactical information, although it is the most important thing. So for me, I kind of, instead of saying 2.0 mindset, 2.0 mode. And when I break that down, M is mastery. So we become a master in one thing, whatever it might be, and in multiple things, but whatever you're focusing on. O is observation. So we really become an observant of our environment and ourselves and other people before we react. And then discipline, because we have to be disciplined and focused in order to achieve something. And then exceptional, that we have to be exceptional instead of being just good.
2.0 mode.
2.0 mode.
Very cool. All right. So you're running someone in a coffee shop and they're like, Jill, that was awesome. I learned a lot about, everything. What is something we didn't touch on that you really think would be impactful for our listeners?
I would say for anybody that we didn't really touch on is, again, shutting everything off and just asking ourselves, how committed are we to doing whatever it is that we're doing right now? Because I see far too often, again, kind of like I said, we think we should be doing something. And that's where just taking an audit of yourself and what you're doing and ask, is this what I really want? Or is it what I'm doing that my parents, my family, my friends, my husbands, or the group I'm in think I should be doing? Because that will either inflate my ego or feel like that's the right thing. So I always say, step back and ask yourself, what is it that I really want? And oftentimes it's not some glitz or glam, a cover, a book or whatever. Those are just means to the actual end and whatever that might be. And that's where I would say for anybody, ask your commitment level and what is it?
So good. Guys, I know you'll want to share this, so make sure to share this. As always, like I said, share, rate, review, subscribe. I love the reviews. Let's go out there. Let's change the world one person or one starfish at a time. If we change one life at a time together, we can change the world. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.